Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to our first edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is a series that's going to take a look at the lives of professional wrestlers and how they raise awareness with doing community service, actions of community service and charity work, and more importantly, just helping others. You know, it's always good to have someone out there that can use their platform, such as a professional wrestler, to do some good deeds. And we've got a very special guest on today. He's done it all. He's helped and trained so many professional wrestlers. He's a former WWE European champion, a former WWE Hardcore champion and tag team champion. He's been working for so many different promotions, WWE, ECW, TNA, and he's got his own school, his own wrestling school. We're going to talk to him about that in the podcast. And he's also running the day-to-day operations for OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. Please give it up for the one and only Al Snow. Al, good to have you on.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you giving me the time for the interview.
Oh, it's the pleasure's mine, totally. So you grew up in Lima, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Lima's only famous for being featured on Glee as the hometown where it took place. I think when Eddie Murphy was buckwheat, he was assassinated. Buckwheat was assassinated in Lima, Ohio. So the most famous people from Lima are Hugh Downs and Phyllis Diller, and now, of course, me, because simply I outlasted them. So, I knew that at one point, I'd take over simply because I was younger than they were. And not far down the road, about maybe 10 minutes down the road, it's the hometown. Wapakoneta is the hometown of Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. So,
historical figures, some of the who's who of people that have lived in Lima. So I got to ask, where is Head?
Head's taking a nap right now. We flew to Memphis yesterday. They had to get up early and then fly back. It was about an 18-hour day. We were doing an interview for a documentary about Kane.
Yeah.
And once you get Head talking, they will not shut up. It's just, and
scattering away, yakking it up.
What a chatterbox. So they're taking a nap right now. They're a little cranky. So I just leave them. Just let them sleep.
Let them doze off.
Yes, it's better that they're quiet and unconscious than awake. And
no doubt. So everybody's got a story of how they got into wrestling, whether they watched it growing up as a kid or they just saw an ad in their newspaper wanting people to try out. What's your story, Al? How did you get involved with pro wrestling?
Made the decision that was what I wanted to do. I was 14 and made that decision and, chased after it. It was very, very difficult. There was not the proliferation of professional wrestling schools like there are these days. It was very closed, very secular business, because the majority of people that were in it made a living off of it. That was the way they fed their families, and they were very protective of it, and rightfully so. And, I struggled. It was very difficult to get in, but, I persevered and, I've been blessed to do what I've gotten to love to do for 40 years now. So it's been awesome. I've just, I've been living the dream. I started in '82 and Vince really started his national upswing in '84. And it took several years, for the territories to totally start to go away. And let's be honest. At the end of the day, Vince didn't kill the territories. What happened was, Vince hired up all of the what we call workers out of the territories, and all that were left in them were wrestlers, and wrestlers don't draw money. And so that was what led to the demise of the territories, is that Vince just pulled all of the talent to WWF at that time. And, and that was quite honestly why they had such an incredible boom with professional wrestling on that level nationally at that time through the 80s and into the early 90s was because of the wealth of talent that knew how to be a star, all of them on every level of the card, from the opening match to the main event. Everyone knew how to be a star and to draw money, and to some degree or another. And that's what crippled and eventually led to the death of the territories, was that there was just no there was no influx of generational talent coming in to replace them.
And you had your Memphises, your Louisvilles, your Heartland Wrestling Association. That was in Ohio too, I think. Cincinnati.
Well, those were developmentals. Memphis was an original territory.
Yes.
But Louisville, OVW, and then Heartland and Cincinnati, those were created, they were developmentals that for WWF at the time, and then became even Memphis toward the latter years prior to the inception of the developmental in Louisville, where it was a developmental originally. It was a developmental territory where talent was sent to get polished and experienced and to learn and develop what works for them, as a talent, and what really connected with an audience for them. That was what Memphis became, and then it went to Louisville, and then also Cincinnati. They had one in LA. In later years, they developed one in Atlanta, and then finally, they consolidated everything in Florida. So
there's a lot of differences, I guess, between the territories themselves in the old days in the 60s and 70s versus the later years, where it was more, I don't want to say corporatized or, like you said, consolidation. What can you tell me about some of the differences between the territories in their heyday versus getting people ready for the big time, so to speak?
The only difference would be that, in that time frame of the territories, there were a lot of differences. Nothing has actually really changed in regards to what it is and why it is that we do what we do. It's still exactly the same. The wheel is still round. The only difference was that, your endeavor was, and sole focus was on making yourself, using the platform to make yourself an attraction that allowed people to believe in who you were and why you were doing it. And you went through great lengths to protect that, because anytime that, and let's bear this in mind. I say this on every interview. The awareness of wrestling being predetermined didn't just come around in the last 15 to 20 years. It didn't come around with the advent of the internet. In the United States alone, the general audience has known that wrestling is predetermined since 1920s. But they have still attended events by the thousands, for decades. And the reason they have is that, at no point in time did the people that were selling that belief of who and why ever violate that what they sold to the audience. The audience never had to have buyer's regret or remorse of feeling like they didn't get what they bought. And, much like magic, everyone has known that magic is not, there's not a guy on stage that's altering reality or defying the laws of physics, but he never clues you in as to how he did it, so that it leaves some wonder and speculation and awe at his ability to allow you to believe and be entertained. And, wrestling's very much the same.
And so you were trained by a guy named Jim Lancaster, but you also attended a tryout camp by Ole and Gene Anderson too.
Yeah. And, I attended that when I was 17, and it's pretty well documented how, they basically really physically mentally and emotionally tortured you and tried to break you down and tried to get you to quit. And, and understandably now, years later, I understand why they did it was because it was to protect
It was tough
what
love.
it was that they did for the living. And, and that just so we're aware, I mean, that didn't stop once you got in. Once you got in, you had to go through much the same thing, because they were deliberately trying to weed out anybody that was going to adversely affect how everyone made a living. So
it was part of the initiation.
I don't know if you would necessarily call it initiation as much as it was, like I said, earning. You're never given anything in life.
No,
I know that we all feel that we're entitled to things. I hate to break it to you. You're not entitled to anything. And I mean, absolutely nothing.
Good point. You have to earn it.
You're not. And that's the harsh reality of things. And you everything you get, you earn. And, I learned that in a very direct and very obvious manner in the fact that I had to earn everything. I had to earn my way in. I had to earn my way on the show. I had to earn my spot in the locker room. I had to earn people's respect. I had to earn their trust because just like in life, everything you do affects everyone else. It doesn't just affect you. I mean, granted, when you're a child, you're a child. You're the only one who pays the consequences of the decisions you make. As you grow up and you become an adult, when you get off the playground in adult world, your repercussions, and every decision you make, contrary to what you may think, every decision you make affects your life, and every decision you make can change your life dramatically one way or the other. And every decision you make has a cost. You get nothing for free. You're not just entitled to get it because you're alive and on this earth. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
I wish it did.
There's no free rides. You have to earn your stripes and earn your keep in order to move up the ladder,
Not even just to be alive. You don't get to just, oh, well, you're entitled to be alive. You're put here for a purpose, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Well, you got to do it,
No doubt.
And that's the contract. That's the deal. And, and that goes to the topic of your podcast, and that, public service and that, is that's part of, or it could be your purpose, is to be here to help others, or at least lend a hand in places where you can, as much as you can.
And, on that note, I found something pretty fascinating. A story that I read earlier. You helped save a child's life in Florida on a Santa Rosa beach last year, I believe it was. It was like, I think he was like underwater. Like you saved him from a riptide.
Yeah, he got caught in a riptide and was being pulled out to sea. I just was in the right place at the right time, and thank God it worked out well for both of us. I mean, there was definitely a moment that I thought that there was a good chance that both of us may not make it, and that we may both actually get swept out and drowned. But I'm grateful that I was able to, help him, and because he was. There's no better way to describe it. It looked like somebody had tied a rope to his ankle and was just literally dragging him out to sea. And by the time I'd made my way over there and had grabbed a hold of his wrist, I knew that if I'd have missed him, like he was going to go past the point of no return, and there was going to be no way that no one could safely rescue him, because he was going to be pulled so far out and so quickly that he would be gone. And I just got lucky, by the grace of God, that I got a hold of his wrist and pulled him to me, and we immediately got pulled under and started to get pulled out again. And I had to dig my feet in and push and get us up out of the water and get us going forward again, so that we didn't get pulled further out. And because the further we went out, the stronger the current became. And I just was very, we were, both of us were very lucky. So
that's such a heartwarming and inspiring story to hear. Not every who no not it's not often that you hear stories like that with somebody, especially a professional wrestler, saving another person's life when they're in danger like that, when they're in the ocean, in the sea. So kudos to you, and definitely somebody that we can consider a role model and a hero for
I'm
sure.
not a role model. The only role model I am is to my own children. I'm not a role model to anyone else's children. If your children, I have said this in the past, if your children are looking outside of his or her door for a role model, then you're not doing your job as a parent, period. Your children can idolize people, but your job as a parent, regardless of whether anyone else agrees with it or disagrees with it, is to instill your values, what you believe is right and what's wrong, your beliefs, your values, your moral code into your child. That's your responsibility as a parent. That is not it takes a village to raise a child. No, it doesn't. It takes a parent to raise a child. And I have 6 kids. Why? I don't know. I don't own a farm. But they just keep popping up everywhere. I got 7 grandchildren. And the one thing I've never asked anyone else to do is I've never asked anyone to raise my kids. I will instill in my child my beliefs and my values to where when they see you in public and you're doing something that doesn't jive with what I've instilled in them, then regardless of how much they idolize you, they will know that it's not what I've taught them is right and wrong. And that's your job, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I've never asked a school teacher. I've never asked the mailman. I've never asked my neighbors to raise my children. I raised them, and I take responsibility for them. And and whether they're perfect or imperfect, which I'm sure they're imperfect, and that is directly because of the fact that I was a factor in their life.
6 kids. Wow, that's unbelievable. And have any of them been interested at all in wrestling or?
Sure. Yeah. Different periods. I have 3 boys and 3 girls, and two of the boys were interested for a period of time. My oldest son was really dramatically, was really involved and was really interested. But then
he got hooked.
Yeah, the passion kind of waned, and
Sure.
And the same goes for my youngest boy. He was very much so to where he was going with me, down to the arena to OVW on days off, and practicing and training and working together. But then it waned, and I've never motivated any of the kids to do it. I've never dissuaded them from doing it. But the one thing I've always been cognizant of is that it's something that they need to be very passionate about doing. And if they don't have that passion for doing it, then it's really not a vocation. It's because that's ultimately, when you distill it down, that's what the real art of professional wrestling is.
Absolutely. You've had such a remarkable career, and we've talked a little bit about your wrestling academy. And you've done work with Ohio Valley Wrestling as well. Talk to me a little bit about your wrestling academy. What is your position like as head of the school?
I bought my partners and I bought OVW from Danny Davis in 2018, and part of the motivation was to enact standards and to raise the level of training in an entrance into professional wrestling, to make actual real requirements, and to create a real educational institution that not only teaches both in-ring skills but also teaches out of the ring and backstage skills, because it's not a matter of if a professional wrestler's in-ring career is going to come to an end. It's a matter of when. And we set about creating a educational platform that actually teaches skills to accentuate what a wrestler does in the ring, but also by teaching those skills gives them an avenue that when their in-ring career comes to an end, that they could still be a positive addition to the professional wrestling industry. So we teach, in-depth in-ring training. And then we teach, backstage skills of production and lighting and camera operation and sound and live event management and financial, etc. And we do so, give these young men and women skills beyond the ring so that they can continue to make a career out of professional wrestling if they're no longer be able to perform in the ring in front of the audience.
Well, you've certainly lived the life for so many years, and you're giving back, and what you do is just, it's just really incredible and remarkable to see what you've been able to do. So where can people find out more about Al Snow's Wrestling Academy?
Well, they can go to ovwrestling.com if they want to find out more about OVW. If they want to find out about the academy, they can go to ovwacademy.com, and all the information is there. We're looking at having an open house on our pay-per-view day of October 29th in next month. And, we're inviting people to come check out, ask questions, if they have interest. Our next class will start in the second week of January. And, we'll start our winter quarter and start the process. And for those that are interested, go to ovwacademy.com. And if they truly have an interest, then, look for information to sign up and come to the open house on October 29th and, get a real feel for what it is they want to do. And they can ask questions and get information to attend the school.
Well, Al, I have to say this is a real privilege getting to talk with you about your career in the wrestling business and your school and just everything that makes a professional wrestler what he or she strives to be. And I just want to say thank you for coming on. It really means a lot to me.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the time, and I've enjoyed it. And I hope that, it helps people out there, go out and just go for it and pursue your dreams.
Definitely. So thank you so much, Al. We appreciate it. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.